Alright guys, we are going to do the stippling pointillism technique here. So it's either pointillism or it's stippling. You don't use both of them together. Now this is the longest technique, so I'm going to skip over it and I'm going to pause it in between just so that you're not spending too much time. Now with pointillism, it's basically dots. You just want to add as many dots as possible. You don't want to add circles and you don't want to stab your pen because then you don't get dots. We don't want to have straight lines or any dots like that. We don't want any circles, we do want the dots here. So that's what we're looking for, and that's just going to make us happy. We're avoiding these little mark making. So the mark making is dots, and the closer together your dots are going to be, the darker it's going to appear. So to start off, a lot of students were struggling, they were filling this up and it was taking them forever. But why not spread that along and start to kind of work on your first layer? Same thing we did with all of our other techniques, spread it along, and then at least your first layer's done. And then I'm going to get further apart, and I'm done. I'm going to stop there. Go back into the first section, fill it up as much as possible. And as I'm doing that, I'm just going to go ahead and kind of bridge that in here, and then stop. I'm going to add as many dots as possible, just on the edges, on this little section, just so that my shape is looking very neat. We want to work on mostly the edges because you want it to look nicely defined. So as I'm adding those along, yes, your hand will get tired, so make sure to take some breaks and just shake your hand a little bit if you need to. And don't hold the pen too hardly either. It's just a dot that you need. You don't need to grasp it with your life and soul. So I'm going to go ahead and draw my dots. You might hear some little taps happening there. That's perfectly normal. And then I'm going to spread that along as much as possible, work on the edges, and kind of pass that along. So now I'm going to just pause and play so you guys can just see how that's coming along, okay? So you can see how it's starting to now transition. Now you can really spend some time here making it nice and dark. And I would only advise you to kind of work on the small sections at a time. Don't do the whole thing, you'll be here forever. Of course, this technique makes your work look amazing. It's a fantastic technique to really add a lot of depth to your work, and it slowly builds. And there's some beautiful pieces of work that you can create from this technique as well. Especially when it comes to drawing. It's amazing to draw with pen. So I'm going to stop here, more or less, just because I've got a nice little sample going there. Of course, I can spend some time making it darker, but for this little demonstration, I'm going to move on to this point here now. Now, the best way to start off pointillism with a 3D form is to start by outlining the shape that you're working with. So I've got this dark edge here, and I'm going to make sure that I add as many dots as possible, just on the edge of that sphere. So as I'm adding it, I'm going to start off bringing it in, and trust me, this technique does take a while, so be patient. Make sure you've got enough time to practice this as well. So as I'm doing that, I'm now going to slowly start putting random dots in between, just to kind of space them out a little bit. Now avoid making those little lines because it does kind of mess your work up a little bit. Of course, there's nothing wrong with it. I'm just going to add more lines so that it gets disguised. But it does take away from all that amazing stippling that you have been doing that you don't want. So keep it to just the dots. If you feel like you're getting tired, take a break. That's fine. There's no shame in that. And go back into this again. And I'm going to go ahead and continue adding as many dots as possible. Closer together, the darker it will be. And you can slowly start to see the tones starting to show dark, medium and light. in my shape as well. And I can clearly spend a lot more time on just the edges, and you'll notice as soon as I'm done with this edge, you can start to see a lot more darker, the darker tones kind of lifting up the rest of the tone, which is great. It's always good to go back and make one section just completely dark, filling all the gaps in. So the less white space I have, the darker it will be. So I'm just going to go ahead and fill these edges in. And my hand is cramping. Lovely. You don't want to work too hard, okay? You're only kids. Take it easy. But it is a great technique, and I'm quite happy with it so far. And that's your stippling, your pointillism technique. And I hope that you all can do a great job in all of them. Okay? Let me know if you've got any questions, and I'll be in class.